Into the wild I'll go, and into the wild I am. It's been a while, freedom child, since I left my roots back home. Into the wild I'll go, and into the wild I am. It's been a while, freedom child, since I left my roots back home.
Welcome to the Freebirth Society podcast. This is a radical space for women who are ready to celebrate their autonomous choices in birth, motherhood, and beyond. Together, we'll learn about wild birth through personal narrative, we'll explore the politics of birth, and we'll analyze everything that relates to our lives as women from a feminist perspective. Here's your host, Emily Saldea.
It's been a while, freedom child, since I left my roots back home.
Sister, are you ready to call in your next baby? Longing for a child and yearning deep in your body for your baby to be conceived, but not yet being pregnant is such a tender and precious time. My name is Nancy Lucina. I am Freebirth Society's in-house shamanic facilitator, and I channeled our Welcoming Your Spirit Baby home course to guide you in this transformative journey. Imagine having a wise sister midwife you through the initiation of conscious conception, so that you are able to truly receive all of the lessons and healing of this time. What would it feel like to connect and communicate deeply with your baby? Who would you be if you could cut through the hustle of your modern life and create spaciousness in your body, heart, and spirit for this next babe to come through you? Imagine any fear and worry about when and if resolving. This course is a gentle and loving initiation into facing and transforming your fears, deepening your trust in the divine timing, and preparing your body, mind, and spirit for conception. Go to freebirthsocietycourses.com/spiritbabies to open the portal for your next child.
Today on the show, we have Jessica from Australia, who is the mother of 4 beautiful daughters. Jessica shares her 4 stories, taking us from a hospital birth to a home birth with a midwife that was sabotaged by inviting too many people, to 2 very different and powerful free births. All right, Jess, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm excited to hear all of these stories because I know you have 4 daughters, which is just magic. And I had the honor of hearing one of your birth stories, so I'm excited to hear all of them in a full sequence.
Cool. I guess my birth stories kind of start back as young as I can remember because I've always been so interested in birth. I think I told you once that in kindergarten or something, I remember drawing pictures of uteruses with babies growing inside of them in my library and my teachers being like,
that's so weird and amazing.
So weird. Yeah. And I can't tell you where that sort of obsession or love came from either because I wasn't particularly surrounded by babies as a kid.
Right. Or like how to draw a uterus.
Yeah. Or to just be even really interested in that. So yeah, that was, that's kind of one of my earliest memories. And then I went on to study naturopathy and I kind of chose all of the electives that were related to childbirth and pregnancy and breastfeeding and all of that. It was just always my thing. So I fell pregnant at the end of 2011. My partner and I decided that we were ready. So when I met my partner, we'd only been together for maybe a week we'd been, we'd just met and he asked if I wanted to be his girlfriend, and I said yes. And then I went back to him like not that long later and was like, just a second, I've got some things I want to nut out with you. Like I want to have 4 babies. Like, is that okay with you? Like, how many do you want? Because if you don't want 4, this probably isn't going to work. And he was like, yeah, I do want 4 babies. So, which is, so interesting. We'd known each other for a week, but I was already like, I don't want to continue this unless it's the deal. So
totally. Why waste your time? I wish more women did that.
Yeah, totally.
It's like vaccine, circumcision, how many kids, where are we at? Am I going to make the decisions? Like, where are we at here? I mean, that's how it was to date me. It's like date 1.
These are things I need.
Down.
Yeah, 100%. Then we were together for maybe about 6 years, I think. And then in 2011, at the end of then, we decided that we were ready to start trying for our first baby. And so we did some preparation, and then I'm pretty sure the first time we tried, we fell pregnant with, our first daughter. Of course, we didn't know it was our first daughter at the time. I was so sick. I vomited every single day, multiple times a day for 40 weeks. So I was so sick the entire time. But I remember my mum used to think that I was just incredible because, I didn't have anything else to do. So I would just vomit, and then I'd be like, okay, obviously my baby's healthy and strong. I'm okay. And I just somehow, I just got through that. So at the time, it was kind of crazy, but, I fell pregnant, had that pregnancy test, and I just went to the doctor and was like, what do I do? Like, I'm pregnant now. Where do I go? What do I do? I kept booking appointments with my doctor until she was like, well, I didn't really have a doctor, just a doctor. And she was like, why do you keep coming to me? And I'm like, because I don't know what else to do. Like, what are we supposed to do when we're pregnant? And she ended up referring me to, like, part of that doctor's clinic had a birth center attached to it. And so she was like, well, why don't you go see the midwives at the birth center? And it was like separate from the hospital. But of course, they work hand in hand as well. Yeah.
Kind of.
So I started going to the birth center. I was palmed off for a few different midwives and finally got settled with a midwife. And I was so desperate for somebody to just want me. Like, why doesn't anybody want to help me right now? Why do I keep getting shifted around? But I got settled with a midwife, and I didn't realize this at the time. I didn't realize until after I'd had my daughter, but she was actually a home birth midwife. And so she had a really natural mind towards birth, and which really suited well with me. So she recommended that I read like Ina May's Guide to Childbirth. And so I did that. And then I also got my hands on Birth Skills, which is a book all about, it's just about, it really enforces that the pain of childbirth is a normal, healthy, natural pain. So they were the sort of things that I was infusing my brain with, and just different skills that you can use during labor to transcend the pain. And so I was sort of really feeding off those. And then when I was about 36 weeks pregnant, there were some issues with the birth center and like really just logistics and political issues, and they closed down. And so my midwife rang me in tears and was like, you're not actually going to be able to birth here. You'll have to book into the hospital. And I was absolutely devastated, but I didn't even question that. And I really didn't think at the time that I had any other options. I know now there's always options. You always have an option, but I did. I just devastated. I went and I booked into the hospital and, had the check, did all the things that I had to do up there. My midwife, the nice thing there is the relationship I had with her could continue, and she could still come to my house during labor if I wanted her to, and she would still accompany me to the hospital, which I was really grateful for, just having that, just a woman friend type thing, someone with me. So I then got to, but there's just because as soon as you become part of the system, there's this whole pressure of when your baby is due, and you're due on this date, and you can only really go to 42 weeks, and then things happen. And so from 40 weeks, or even leading up to that, there was already this pressure of like this looming induction, and this is like what potentially could happen. So on 40 weeks, on my due date, I went to an acupuncturist she was really good. She said she was not going to do anything crazy, just some cervical ripening type techniques or whatever. But, I always do think like, yeah, obviously there's no such thing as a natural induction. You don't muddle with something that ain't broke.
Yes, and acupuncture does not put someone into labor.
Yeah.
It does not ripen cervixes. That's I'm not saying it's to you, but like that's an absurd thing to claim. Like acupuncture, if done well, can help bring your body into alignment. Like that's it, like it doesn't
open energy channels.
Yeah, sure. Exactly. This idea that it like could put you into labor or anything, that anything puts you into labor is not true.
Other than your baby and your body.
Right. Other than you. Yeah.
So I did that and then had another appointment with her, I think like 4 days later. But so on the Monday, so I was 3 days over and everyone had already been at me saying, oh yeah, you'll just go to like 40 plus 10 and get induced because that's what everyone does. And it was just really got me down. I was only 3 days past, in there. But I remember my mom coming up for the day and I just was like miserable. I just wanted to lie on the lounge and she was like, come on, let's go for a walk. Got me out of the house. We went walking and came home and it just felt a little bit better, but still just felt so miserable and really like reclusive. I didn't want to do anything. But so I now sort of like relate that to maybe being in, that my body knew that something was about to happen. Perhaps like just that feeling really withdrawn. So that night I went to bed a bit later than usual. I maybe hopped into bed at about 10:30 and I sat up crocheting a blanket that I was making for my baby. And I decided I was going to go to bed, but first I just thought I'd do some acupressure points. And so I sort of did this fleshy point on my thumb here for 5 minutes or something. And then I leant forward into child's pose and heard this snap. And my water had broken, and which was so amazing. I had no idea that it would pop, actually be audibly, and like that you'd physically feel that. So I went to the toilet, and obviously, was that my water? What's going on? And tried to pee, but it just sort of like trickled out, and I was like, oh. So I ran out to my husband and was like, he was up watching TV quite late as well. I don't know why we were up so late this particular night. Of course, that's the way it works. And was like, I think my water just broke. And he's like, shit, what do we do? And I was like, I don't know. I think we just go to bed. I think we should just go to bed. So we crawled into bed and just cuddled. And I remember I just sort of wept and was like, the two thoughts I was having was, this is the last time it's just going to be us ever. And I really hope I'm going to be a good mom. And I just cried and probably laid there for half an hour and sensations were sort of starting. So I thought I might just call my midwife and just let her know. So I did that. And she said, okay, well, maybe just try and go back to bed, see if you can get some more sleep and let me know if things pick up. So I laid back down for maybe 5 minutes because I actually couldn't lie there. It was quite intense. And so I got up, told my husband to just stay in bed. I knew it wasn't likely going to happen too quickly. So I was like, get some sleep, get some rest. And I just got up. I put on, I'd done calm birth during the pregnancy. So I just put on the calm birth CD and did some meditations that I'd been doing, sat on my birth ball and just, I just did that for as long as I could. And then that sort of stopped. That stopped being enough. And so I got up and just paced the house. I was really focusing on two things from Ina May's Guide to Childbirth, the phrase like, let your monkey do it. I was really leaning into that and just trying to switch off anything, like I wasn't timing contractions or anything like that. I was just feeling into it. And also in the birth skills book, there was this whole theory of matching the pain. So just making your voice or your body movements as big as the pain or as big as the sensations. And so I had this this movement that I was doing where I'd sort of just lean over and I'd pound my thighs with my fists and just rhythmically sort of go up and down. And that started quite gently and went really quite hard. I think people were like, gosh, she's going to have bruises all over her legs. But it totally worked. It was really worked for me. So yeah, I just paced in the paced the house just back and forth on my own. I went and jumped in the shower for a bit, got out, got dressed again, did some more pacing, and then started vomiting, which, like I said, I'd vomited for 40 weeks. So I was just like,
yeah, you're like barely noticed.
Whatever. This is just another thing. But the vomiting woke up my husband. I think it was about 3 a.m. now. So I'd maybe been up and just pacing for about 3 hours. He got up and just helped me to clean up and and then I think he might have given me a massage, and then I was like, I think we should probably call the midwife now. Call my midwife and just let her know. So he gave her a call. She was about half an hour away, and she said she'd come. She turned up when I was in the shower, and I think she listened to like 1 or 2 contractions, and she was like, oh, I think. And asked me how I was feeling, and I had lots of pressure, so I could feel the pressure. It felt really, really big. There was not, between the contractions, there wasn't much rest. It just was really, really full. And she was like, I think maybe it's time to go to the hospital. What do you reckon? And I was like, yep, I think you're right. So I went. They helped me to get dressed, and she reminded me.
She didn't check you?
No, she didn't. Yeah.
That's interesting as a, obviously I don't support vaginal exams, but that's interesting as a licensed hospital midwife that she wouldn't do that to just really make sure you're at the end.
Yeah. Yeah. She didn't suggest it. And it wasn't, I don't think it was really a protocol of the birth center. And I know that it's not one of hers as a home birth midwife. She much prefers to just sit and watch and listen. So no, she didn't. Yeah.
I have a question too. So if she was a home birth midwife, why didn't you have her as a home birth midwife?
I don't know. I didn't know at this stage she wasn't a home birth midwife. I didn't know. She didn't tell me. She was with me because I was through the birth center, and then it was just, and I think she would have thought it was like a conflict of interest if she had have then told me she was a home birth midwife. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not, and I would love to think that had she have told me that she was a home birth midwife, that I would have said, yeah, sweet, let's do that. But really we didn't have very much money at the time, and I reckon that I would have put that first. Thinking that was what was most important, which I'd love to think that I wouldn't have, but I just don't know. Anyway, so I got dressed. I remember panicking at that stage and started breathing crazily, just freaking out, going, oh my goodness, we're going to the hospital having this baby. And she counted me through that, and she was like, bring your breath back down. She counted out, a breath of 4 and back. And as soon as I did, I felt the intensity improved again, which was really amazing. So I got dressed. We headed out to the car. It was quite cool. It was just the end of the last few days of winter. We were heading into spring, but it was still quite cool outside. It was about 4 a.m. So, the coldest time of night, and went to hop in the car, and another contraction started. And so I jumped straight out because I'm like, last thing I want to do is sitting on this right now. This is awful. So I stood up and I just leant on the side of the car, breathing through it. And I was like, oh, it's a 15-minute drive to the hospital. I cannot do this 10 times between now and the hospital. I'm going to have to find something else to get through this. So I called on one of my calm birth skills, which was just visualization. And I hopped in the car and I talked my husband through. I'm a snowboarder, so I talked him through me hopping on a T-bar, riding to the top of the hill, getting to the top at the peak of the contraction, and then just going back down again. And he helped talk me through that. I talked him through it.
That's clever.
Yeah, that's something calm birth taught us. Was something that you can really relate to, that you can relate to the height of a sensation and back down again. So I did that for the ride. My midwife had sort of told me before we left to remember that, you know, things change when you get to the hospital. So to try really hard to stay in my zone, keep my eyes closed, try to stay dark and quiet and all of those things. So turned up at the hospital and I just kept my eyes closed or as open as they needed to be just to walk in. We walked in. I think they offered us a wheelchair and my midwife scoffed at them and said, "Get that away from here. We don't need that. She can walk." So we walked up the corridors in the elevator. I just kept pounding my thighs, eyes closed. Don't really remember seeing anybody, but remember it. So I had this vision of me being in labor the whole time, of being like out of my body and looking down on me like a bird's eye view, like I could see myself like that. We got into up there and the hospital midwife came in and asked if I wanted a cervical exam and I said yes. So I had one. It was awful, horrible, but so rough. I don't even know why I wanted one, but I did. And this is one of the things where I just think I'm just so lucky that, so I was 7 centimeters, which is and I know that means absolutely nothing, but had she come back and told me I was 3, it would have just changed everything. So I think it was ridiculous of me to ask for it. And also, and then also maybe I would have been treated really differently had I said no. So who knows? They basically just left us alone in there. I jumped in the shower, kept pounding my thighs. I hopped in the bath for a bit. But hated it in there because the stupid baths of the hospital, they're like super thin and I'm quite tall and have quite long legs and there's no way I could be comfortable in there. Every time a contraction came, I'd jump out of the water to like bang my thighs again, and that was absolutely exhausting. I was obsessed with pooping. I didn't think that I would be, but I was so terrified of pooping. I remember at one stage that in the bath I was in there was this tiny little fleck of something brown. I swear it was smaller than a piece of glitter, but I was like, there's some poo. I told you I would poo. And my midwife was like, maybe that is. I went back to the shower, sat on the toilet for a bit and
it sounds like you had a fast labor.
I really did. I really just think I was so lucky. So I sat on the toilet and I said, I think I feel like I need to push. And my midwife was like, yeah, okay, cool. Well, this is happening. And she said, why don't you hop up and you could like lean on my husband like a supported squat. And so I tried that. It was so really uncomfortable. That did not work for me at all, or for him. Like it just felt really awkward. And at this stage I started panicking and I was like, I can't do this anymore. This is really hard. I can't do it. And my midwife came right up in my face and stared me in the eyes and was like, you can do this. You are doing this and you're about to meet your baby. You're doing amazingly. And the intensity just like vanished in that moment, just locking eyes with her, and I brought my breathing down. And then I felt another contraction coming and I was like, midwife, come back, please tell me how amazing I am again. Tell me again how amazing I'm doing. And she did. And again, it just like, it was unbearable. I decided I wanted to move to the bed. So I did, because I had it like the head up and I leant on that and just was kneeling on the bed. And the hospital midwife came in because there had to be 2 of those present for the birth. And she came in and she said something. I remember her just walking in authoritatively and she was like, oh, she should be pushing, because they could hear I was having a contraction. And I was just like, just ignored her. And I was like, no, you know what? I just need this contraction to gather myself, because I know my baby is coming and I just want to, even though I could feel the pushing and I'm sure my body was pushing, I just felt the need to gather myself and come back to center. So I did that. Another midwife walked in and said something like really derogatory, or derogatorily saying, oh, is she done calm birth or something? Almost bagging the fact that I was so calm or so in control, which, was just like, oh my God, we talk to women like this or about them. Anyway, I then...
We don't.
No, we don't. And then, yeah, I just started pushing, and I think I had my hands over my vulva. I had read, Ina May had said, she rarely has seen a woman tear who was holding her own vulva without anyone else's hands there. So I had my hand there, and I was just saying over and over in my head, it's made to stretch, it's made to stretch, it's made to stretch, it's made to stretch. And I pushed my baby's head out into my hands, and she came out, and I picked her up, popped her on my chest, and I was just amazed. And I feel like I had pretty much the best hospital birth story that I could possibly have imagined or ever have heard. And I think I was really lucky that things went that well, and there were no obstetricians that came in, and I was...
Yeah, it was... you were lucky also at the like fast pace of it, but it wasn't without its coercion and its condescending, like it wasn't without some gross shit.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's crazy because I think I'm lucky because they only said this to me, and it's just...
Well, that's how women are trained to think.
We're
right?
so conditioned.
Accepting crumbs. Like you see that the worst case scenario is a C-section or a brutal torture induction. Yeah. And it is better than that. You are lucky that you have less trauma or less abuse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's great because I was only treated like shit this much. So.
A little bit. Oh, good Lord. Okay.
Yeah, totally.
But I hear your point. I mean, it is. Thank God that was your story.
Absolutely. I was lucky compared to others. So how does
that go on to shape you for number 2?
Yeah. So I wanted to go home straight away. And so I did. The midwives wanted me to breastfeed first before I did. And I remember not really knowing what I was doing. And so one of the hospital midwives just grabbed my boob, grabbed my baby, and put the two together and was like, there you go, you're doing it, you can go. They were cranky because I wanted to leave. Also because we'd declined like Hep B and vitamin K. So, we got all the lectures about that and about how we were going to kill our baby by not doing those. And they were the biggest things that I was just like, you know what? I didn't need to be here. The biggest thing that I obstructed myself with was just leaving our house in the first place. Had we have just, we were only at the hospital for an hour and a half or something by the time she was born. And I was like, if we had stayed home, probably would have been in half an hour. Like, or whatever. Who knows? You never know. But yeah, there was definitely hindrance in that. So from then I was just like, well, I'm not giving birth in a hospital again. I didn't need that. And that was that was the biggest risk that I took, was heading there in the first place. So from there I was like, our next baby will be born at home for sure. And I then must have learned over the next little bit that my midwife was a home birth midwife. And so, I just started immersing myself in home birth books. And, this is almost straight from the beginning. I was like, I want to do that again, but next time I'm going to do it better. And this is me just already just telling myself, instead of just being really triumphant in it, I was like, next time I'm not going to freak out. Birth is not going to break me. Which is so, I know I can see your face, and that's how I think as well. And I don't want to say that I'm stupid, but it was so, so silly. Just this idea that I thought that that birth breaking me, or me getting to that point where I was like, I can't do this anymore, was a bad thing.
That's patriarchy, baby.
No.
It's not you. Yeah. That's you making birth the enemy, and that it's weak. That it's weak to like succumb to it. All the while, your innate instincts and intuition are also keeping you home in your preparation. So You're working it out.
I am. It just took me. It was a really convoluted way to get there. Could have been so much easier than me thinking, like patriarchy, that I could control it and that I had.
And our ego.
And ego. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I did.
And like, you got to give yourself a break, because it's not like you were raised in some matriarchal commune where you're watching the women who raise you all birth freely and be decimated and survive and love at the wildness of it. Like, we are rewriting this shit from scratch at this point, So
yeah. Yes, this is so true. This is so true. So right from the beginning, I thought I had this all in the bag and I was totally controlling it. And I was, next time I was going to be even more of a rock star. So, watching lots of home birth videos, reading lots of home birth books, immersing myself in home birth Facebook groups, whatever. So I fell pregnant with our next daughter, and it was just an easy decision. We hired the midwife again and did all the things, but in our house instead of at a birthing center or hospital. I had lots of prodromal labor. So from about 37 weeks, I was up every second night, I think, with just these like niggles and cramps and being uncomfortable.
So what is the setup with the second birth? It's the same midwife, obviously your partner, and what's the setup?
Oh, dear me. So I really wanted my sister to be there, and I felt that we should have somebody there to really look after our daughter, Isabel. And so I asked my sister to be there. I then knew that if I had my sister there, then I had to have my mum there. So I asked my mum to be there. Then I thought, because I'm still at this stage thinking how much of a rock star I am.
Right. But you didn't want your mom there, right?
Yeah. No, not really. Yeah. She definitely, she wasn't. Then I still thinking I'm going to be a rock star and love birth photos and videos, of course. So I was like, well, I'm going to just have this amazing experience photographed and videoed as well. So I got in a photographer. She was lovely, but anyway, observation. And then my midwife had a student midwife call her who was a male student midwife, and said he'd never seen any physiological births in his time at the hospital. And here I was, like, I totally was like, yeah, cool, I'll totally hero this person and show them how amazing birth can be. And so I was like,
spectate me, imposter fucker.
Yeah, totally. And, like, looking back, that's 100% what it was. He turned up to some of my prenatals and, like, there was no connection there. There was no interest in me as a, like, there was.
No, you're like a monkey.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly how I felt through it as well. Yeah, so here I am inviting 1,000 people into my beautiful, sacred home birth.
But this is really so important, because so many women do this. So many women do this with the second, where it's like, I got it in the bag. I already had a baby come out of my vagina, and then they accidentally sabotage their second birth. So for any of you listening who are pregnant, don't do this. Learn from what Jess is about to share, because we never have it in the bag.
Never. Yeah.
Never.
Like, yeah.
That's the point.
That is the point. And like you and Yolanda say, it's supposed to decimate us. That's the point. So I kept having these visions throughout the pregnancy, and especially after I'd invited all of these people in, of this really clear vision that I would give birth in my bathroom with just my daughter. It was just my daughter and I there, and I would ask her can you just go get my phone so I can call Daddy? I swear that was my brain just willing me to, like, reconsider what I was doing. Like, are you really? Yeah. What are you doing here? Anyway, from about 37 weeks, I kept having these, sort of waking up in the night with sensation, thinking things were starting, and then they just dwindle out. I think I was, exactly 40 weeks, and I woke up and things were really regular. My daughter woke up and she was a bit unwell, so I went and cuddled her on the lounge for a bit and was moving around and could, the sensations were definitely there. I lit all the candles in my birth space again for like the 20th time. And was thinking this is it. I think I called my midwife to let her know. I said, I don't need you just yet, but just letting you know, like things are definitely starting. Called my mum and my sister. I was like, things are happening today. Don't come here or anything, but, things are happening. And I reckon I hung up the phone and everything just stopped. It all just dwindled out. And I was like, devastated. My mind was just, and because it was happening again. So I went to bed. I think my husband told me to go to bed, and I just lay there crying, just being like, is this baby going to come?
So hard.
So hard. And I was so tired, and
Oh, right. Wait, that's what I wanted to ask you. Did you puke throughout your second pregnancy?
Oh, yeah. So this is So I did, but I just puked until about 20 weeks, and then I was all right.
Okay.
And it's so weird.
Because,
about 30 weeks. Yeah, so it's really weird. But I kind of puked for like 10 weeks less each pregnancy,
that is interesting and weird.
So weird. So weird.
Okay.
So till about 30 weeks. And then, the last 10 weeks were all right. Yeah. Then I called my midwife in the afternoon, said things are kind of dying down and, they're not started. I was really devastated. And she said, look, I just go for a walk. I think you guys should just go for a walk and just relax, get some fresh air, go to a cafe, just get out of the house and get out of your head for a little bit. And so we went for a walk. The cafe we walked to was closed. On the walk, my sister called and told me that they'd come up to Orange that morning. And so we live about 45 minutes away from there. And I was like, I told you not to come. But then, I said, well, why don't you guys come over and, you can make us dinner or something before you go home. Don't waste your trip. And so they did that. And, we got home and they were there. And, the contractions were sort of, I think, coming a bit more regularly then. And I knew, this is kind of the beginning of it. It was maybe about 4:30 in the afternoon. I just went out. I didn't want any dinner, but I just went out into our birth space and I just watched some birth videos on my own. My daughter came and joined me when she'd finished her dinner, and we just held each other, and I was crying again. I cried a lot during this labor. I think my midwife showed up at about 7:30. I think she's texted me and said, "Are you ready for me yet?" And I was like, "No, not yet. You're fine." There was already too many people in my house. So I was already feeling really, there was nowhere safe for me to go or nowhere quiet and dark enough. And, but then I had another contraction after that, and I sort of messaged her and was like, okay, I'm ready for you now. Come now. And so she turned up, and the male midwife turned up pretty much with her. And I remember I just sort of paced around the house and was just trying to find any dark, quiet space. I felt like a wild animal trapped in a zoo being watched from every direction. There just felt nowhere safe and quiet and dark enough for me to go and where I wanted to be.
You were.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was.
You were, but it's interesting in this story because minus the random dude, everyone there loved you. Everyone was there with loving intentions, I'm sure, but that doesn't equal that anyone knew how to hold the space.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. And so many different energies in this space that nobody knew how to integrate them. Mm-hmm. Yeah, or channel them in the right direction. Yeah.
Right. And again, I'm kind of harping on that because I just talked to so many women who accidentally plan these party births. And it's like, well, everyone loves me. Everyone's supportive. And it's like, yeah, but when you're... Yeah. And when you're like an exposed spiritual being shedding her layers of ego so that she can die and be reborn, how does that level of exposure, like who weaves that together?
Yeah. And like I'd read Jane Hardwick Collins writing about cats and how they need to be alone and how no one should be in your birth space that you wouldn't be comfortable pooing in front of or making love in front of. And I was like, well, that's no one.
Yeah, exactly.
that's just me and my husband. Like, yeah. So yeah, that was
definitely not that male midwife. Unless he was hot.
No, definitely not him. And so that was sort of playing in my head too. And I was trying so hard just to switch all of that off. But man, that was an effort. Then the photographer showed up and
Oh no, I forgot about the photographer now.
Yeah, there's still more people.
Oh shit.
And like she was really great, and she'd promised she'd be like a fly on the wall, and she really was. But shutters make noise.
Right.
And there was this click, and I kept hearing this click, and I was like, why are you photographing me right now? And this is
She's like, because you paid me to.
Yeah, you paid me to do this. Totally. I hopped in the birth pool, and that I felt so alone in there too. Like, I think lots of people say birth pools are like a nice barrier between you and any intervention or any other hands. But I just felt like here I am in this birth pool with 7 people watching me. So I just felt like I was sort of like then even more on a stage. Eventually my husband hopped in there with me, and that was a bit nicer to be held a little bit more in there and maybe protected a little bit more. At one stage I asked why it was taking so long, and my midwife was like, well, I can check you if you want, but you really hated that last time. And I said, yeah, I did. And she's like, well, I'm not going to do it then. She did actually get everyone to leave the room for a little bit, and my husband and I just laid on the bed and cuddled, and that was that was lovely. But still, everyone was in the next room and
waiting on you.
Could hear them giggling and chatting and whatever else. So it's still, it was nice. And but through it all, all I wanted was just to be alone with Baden and myself. And at one stage, my daughter went to bed at maybe 10:30, and I remember when she left, I was then in tears then again, because I was like, all I wanted was for her to be here. The only person that I actually wanted to be here is my husband and my daughter, and she's being taken away, and now it's just me with these 7 other, or however many, there 5 other people that I don't want, and the one person that I really do is gone.
Oh, that's so sad.
It really hurt. And then then I was like, I feel like I should be pushing. This is maybe a bit later on, still in the pool now, and when Baden had joined me and was sort of like applying pressure on my back, and my midwife was like, you are pushing. And I was like, oh yeah, okay, I guess I have been pushing for a bit, like just that sort of grunty pushing, but I hadn't really associated it. And then, a few more contractions, and I said something like, am I trying to push this baby out bum first? And my midwife was like, I don't know, maybe you are. Would you like me to check? And I'm like, yeah. And I really didn't want her to. So I was like, okay, now I'm pushing this baby out. Now this baby's coming out, because I don't want a vaginal exam, and I do not want a vaginal exam in front of 4 people. And this isn't happening. So I just started actively pushing, and her head came out, and I didn't tell anyone. I just was kind of hiding it as much as you can with a head hanging out your vagina. And then the next contraction, I just pushed her out. I was told to pick her up, and I was a bit like, oh, I know, I'm picking her up. My cord was really short, so that was quite uncomfortable to be in the birth pool and trying to keep her out of the water when my cord literally only came as high as maybe my belly button, if that. And she just looked at me, and I looked at her, and I cried and was like, oh, baby, I'm so sorry. That was so tough. My husband, it's funny, my husband thought that, it took so long maybe because I wasn't as fit as I was for our first daughter or anything like. He was like, maybe that was, and I'm like, no, it was the people in the room. I don't think he believed me though until we had our next baby. So I then, almost immediately I was like, I'm not doing that again. But yeah, I think he just totally didn't understand how important it is for us to be left alone. And yeah. So yeah, straight from there, I knew, I was like, no, I'm not doing that again. Next time it is going to be just my husband and my baby. I then studied to be a doula in this space between these two babies. And I, in my studies, it's funny because I'm sure that the doula training sort of said, never support a woman who free births. But one of the options for a book to read was called Unhindered Birth. I'm not sure if you know it, by Sarah Morgan Haydock. And I was drawn to that because I was like, yes, that is how I felt in this birth. I was so hindered. And so I'd read that, and I found that really, really loved so many things about that birth, about that book. And so it was like, yep, our next baby, I'm going to free birth. I was quite involved with a birth community here at the time that my midwife had started. And so was working with her a bit, and went to a few home births with her as well. And we were, sort of working together a bit as a doula. But I fell pregnant, and I think I didn't tell her till I was about almost halfway through, because I knew that I didn't want her to be there, but it was almost sort of a given that she would be. And that was, in hindsight, I should have been more honest with her right from the beginning. But yeah, and then maybe when I was about 6 months pregnant, she was like, maybe, do you think we should have our first prenatal now? And that's when I sort of turned around and said, you know what, I just want to be on my own this time. I just want to do it just us. And I'm sure she was hurt, but she was really supportive of that. And she was like, it's your birth. You do what you got to do. She still hired me her birth pool, which she didn't have to, but was really sweet for her to do that. And yeah, I was so in that book, Unhindered Birth, one of the biggest things from it was this analogy of being strong in birth like a willow tree. So you don't think of a willow tree being a strong tree. When you think of a strong tree, you'd think of an oak or something, but a strong wind comes through and the branches of the oak will just snap. Whereas a willow tree can endure so much more stress than the oak tree. The wind just passes through the branches, and that's how you need to be in birth. Just let it pass through you, surrender to it, and go with the flow of it. So that was my mantra for this entire pregnancy, was just to trust birth and let go and surrender, because that's what I did not do in my previous birth. And so, yeah, I think I was 41 weeks, which is the longest I'd ever been pregnant, but I was so content and so happy just letting it do what it had to do. We went to a lunch for someone's 50th party, and one of my husband's aunties said to me, all right, you should go home now and have that baby. I don't think she meant it that literally.
She cast a spell.
But it was a spell. We got home and I was having a bit of a nap. I just laid down on the lounge, and my husband was cooking dinner and just sort of fielding the daughters from my space, just, leave mum alone, she's having a rest. And I felt a sensation. My eyes sort of popped open and I looked at the clock on our wall and it was 4:00, and I drifted back into this sort of rest and another sensation, and I popped my eyes open and it was 4:10 and another sensation, and this sort of continued for maybe an hour and a half. And I was lying down and I thought, if this is continuing while I'm just lying here and getting stronger and a bit closer together, I was like, okay, this is it. So I hopped up around 5:30-ish and was like, okay, I think this baby's coming. And so the girls and I helped clean my birth space, and my husband kept making dinner and came and helped us a little bit as well, because I gave birth in the playroom. So there were toys everywhere. We're just pushing them off to the side, being like, need to make space for this birth pool, whatever. Blew that up, put that in. they ate dinner. I didn't really want dinner, but I kept walking through the kitchen. And they were like, the potatoes smelled so good. They had a roast, and I remember eating these potatoes, and they were just the most delicious potatoes of my life. I've never eaten a potato so good, or since then. They were so delicious. I think it's just that heightened sense of being in labor and things being so delicious.
And your husband crushed those potatoes.
Totally.
He nailed them.
Amazing. He nailed them for the only time ever. First and last. Yeah, they were incredible. So then he just bathed the girls, and I just kept wandering around doing my thing. He took them to bed, and I remember looking at the kitchen being like, this is a pigsty. And so I cleaned the kitchen and did the washing up. And as I was washing up, my hands were wet, and each sensation contraction that came, I had to dry my hands. Like, having wet hands was, too much for me to even get my head around. I think it's quite funny now because my third daughter, she gets the tiniest little splash of or drip of water on her, and she cannot stand it.
No way.
Yeah. So even last night, my second daughter spilled a glass of water all over herself, like from head to toe. She was drenched with water, and one tiny little splash landed on my third daughter, and she was screaming and freaking out. And my second daughter's like, so I think it's so interesting.
That's so cool.
Yeah, I always think of that when I'm like, me just like ferociously frantically drying my hands to like be able to have this sensation.
That's cool.
And it's so really interesting. And then kept washing up.
I knew. I was gonna say, I met a woman one time in LA who hates chocolate. Absolutely hates chocolate, never liked it, her whole life, never liked it. And with one of her babies, when she was pregnant, she loved chocolate. She had to eat it. And then the second she gave birth, she couldn't eat it again. And her little kid is like a chocolate fiend. And I always thought that was so cute.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, you're one person.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. You're possessed, basically.
Absolutely. Yeah. My husband put the girls to bed. I was quite open to them being there, but like I said, it was all about surrender for me. So I wasn't fixated on anything. I was trying really hard to just be, my whole thing was just letting everything go and just letting it be how it had to be. So he came out maybe at 9:30. And he was doing some work for the next day, sending off lesson plans. He's a teacher because I told him, you're not going to work tomorrow. So he's here thinking, Jess doesn't labor as quick as she says she does. This is going to be a long night. So he's like doing work, and it's about 9:30, and I'm like, I'm going to hop in the pool. And he's like, I don't think you're ready. And I'm like, I don't think you know. So see you later. So I jumped into the pool, and he came in, and I asked him to massage my back, and he did for a bit. And then next thing I looked up, and he was lying on the bed there. And I was like, I'm like in this, like I'm really in the zone, and he has no idea. I think he came over and showed me a YouTube clip that he thought was funny. He thought,
oh my God.
Get me? I know.
Read the room, dude. You're in a birth tub.
He literally had no idea. Because in his head, I was like, it had been maybe 4 hours since I'd said, this is, I think the baby's coming. And he was like, this is going to be like Lacey's birth. Like, she's not going to birth till the early hours of the morning. But no, he had no idea, which it sounds like he was totally out of it. And he was, but I must say, I kind of liked that after Lacey's birth. I just liked the fact that he had no idea. He had no idea where I was at. And so I kind of just like shushed him away. I was like, no, that's not doing anything for me. And then, it was maybe like half an hour, 20 minutes later that I pushed our daughter out into my hands. Yeah, the cord was around her neck, I think. And it was so just instinctual, just unwrapping her, pulling her up. And my husband was just like, I swear his jaw just hit the floor. He was like, holy shit, you've got that down pat, don't you? Like, I think he said something,
That's
totally
cute.
Australian like that. He was like, wow, I can't, that just happened, and so quickly. And I mean, I maybe make that sound like it was easier than it was. It definitely wasn't. It was labor. It was
just because it's quick
crushing.
doesn't mean it's easy.
No, that's right. It definitely wasn't easy. Yeah, I guess the benefit of it is you're not as tired. You don't have that. You're not as like physically and emotionally exhausted. I don't know. That's my interpretation anyway.
So how do you feel afterwards, having had your first like truly undisturbed birth?
Yeah. So it felt, it was obviously great. And I was like, we just did that. That was amazing. But it also, the main thing that kept just flowing through, because I'd tell people that we'd done it and they were like, whoa, that is so intense. And I'm like, yeah, birth is intense, but it really, like, giving birth in a hospital is intense.
Hello.
Like, it was like, intense is just not how I would describe it. It was just normal. And it was so normal. Like, I just had a baby. And yeah.
Well, the descent from the system is really what they're saying is intense.
It's intense. Yeah.
Like, oh, damn.
Yeah.
You did not play like a sheep. Whoa, that's intense.
Yeah. That's intense. Yeah, you're so right. Yeah. But yeah. So yeah, that was cool. Yeah, it was interesting actually going back to like during my pregnancy, and obviously I was really careful with who we told that was our plan. I think I told my mom and my family, and she was a bit concerned but was okay with it. We didn't tell my husband's family that's what we were doing. I chose a few select friends to tell that I thought were safe, and it was so interesting how many people I thought were safe that were not safe. And yeah, so many projected fears. But again, I was so focused on surrendering that it didn't really sway me. I just was like, oh, damn, that was the wrong person.
Yeah, it really shows you who is mature enough to respect you. You know what I mean? Like, because obviously it's their own projections and it's their own fear, and that's fine. People who love us, who are witnessing, us do a different thing. Like, it doesn't mean that they can't have their feelings about it, but it takes a level of maturity to be able to have that and also still respect you. And like, when I say respect, I mean not dump that projection onto you, still support you, understand, as adult human females, we can make our own decisions for our family and our bodies. It really reveals or reveals the immaturity, right? It either reveals the maturity or the immaturity, because being afraid or being like, I wouldn't do that, doesn't really matter. That's not really it. It's like, who shows up to be like, yeah, girl, you do you. Like, live your life. It doesn't matter what I fucking think about it. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, so interesting. And so interesting that it is so like the opposite being true, that being like, you realize if you give birth in a hospital, then it's probably going to mean that they're going to like put their hands inside of you and cut you and, yada, yada, yada. It's so unacceptable to say that.
To state facts.
To say the opposite. Yeah. To tell the truth. Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, in reverse, like I'm not judging the women in my life who are birthing at the hospital, or at least I'm working not to. Like, it's none of my business, and that's totally fine. But you're right, of course, like in the descent, when you dissent from the mainstream, it creates this othering where the sheep are allowed to critique, judge, and get involved in your business. Like, we're seeing it right now, right? With COVID and vaccines and da-da-da-da. It's like, if you aren't going along with the mainstream, you get to be critiqued. But what about, like, when we critique the mainstream, we literally get censored. It's like, hello. So obvious.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. This is the story you can tell. That's it. Yeah, so true. Yeah, so it was interesting. Like, yeah. So not many people asked me about that birth as well. I've definitely found that people didn't really want to know that birth story as much.
Whoa.
because it just didn't sit as well with them. Yeah, which is really interesting. So then my fourth baby, so life was so lovely. Our third daughter just like slotted into our life just so perfectly. It was, she was such an easy baby. So yeah, an easy baby. Like, yeah, we knew what, I kept saying, I wish you could have your third baby first. That was just, it was beautiful. And life was so sweet. And it was at this stage where I was like, oh, do we want to have that fourth baby that is like waiting to come into our life? Is that something like, are we ready to do that? We decided that we were. And so I fell pregnant with our fourth baby. And so this time I was only sick for about 10 weeks or something, which was amazing. We went on we came over to the US in the December, January, and had like 4 weeks over there, just like traveling around, and it was amazing. Then we came back and COVID hit. And so that was sort of in March, April, and this baby was due in May. I knew I'd sort of worked it out that, she was due sort of at the beginning of May, and I was like, oh, this is going to be a Taurus baby. And I was looking up Tauruses, and I'm like, oh, stubborn as a bull. Oh dear, what are we doing disrupting our family here? Our perfect life. We were, I also, the other thing that's interesting is I'd kind of like was looking at the moon cycles, and I was born on myself. I was born on a waxing gibbous, and my eldest daughter was born on a waxing gibbous. My next daughter, who had the crazy birth that I was totally trying to control, it was a bit different. My third daughter was born on a waxing gibbous, and I was like, I kind of feel like this baby is going to come on the 4th of May, which is the day before her due date. And because that's like an 87% waxing gibbous, and that's the exact same moon phase that I was born on, my eldest daughter and my third daughter. I was like, I reckon that's when she's going to come. But, also not attached to it, like just willow tree, totally willow tree. But that's just like a weird little thing. We went into lockdown. We like camped in our backyard, only left when we had I actually couldn't bring myself to leave the house because, we'd go for walks around the park or whatever, but I was like, I don't want to go to the shops, like all the stand on this X here and wear this mask, and I was just like, I don't want to leave. And it was kind of all right too, being in that last phase of labor when you tend to want to like just become a bit more insular. We made it work in our house. I tried not to get depressed over the state of the world, and just tried to stay positive in our little space.
Slogan of 2020.
Totally.
I just tried not to get too depressed.
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah.
Yep. On the 2nd of May, it must have been. She was due on the 5th, and I thought she would come on the 4th. On the 2nd, our TV broke. And it was, COVID. So on the 3rd, on the morning of, I woke up and I was having contractions, and I like just sensations. I was sort of feeling it, and I wasn't too attached to them, but they were different. They were so different from any of my other ones, a bit more similar to Lacey, my second birth, where it was like, oh, this is weird, niggles. Like, is something happening? Is it not? Restrictions were lifting either that day or the next day. And so we went to the shops to buy a new TV. And I remember as we were buying the TV, I had like 1 or 2 sensations as we're standing here in this like shop. And I was just like, yeah, not attached to it. We're going to my parents for lunch, because restrictions were just easing and we hadn't seen them for a long time. And it's about 45 minutes away. And I was like saying to my husband, I'm not sure if we should go or not. Like, and he was like, well, if we get halfway there and you don't want to, we'll turn around and come back. We'll leave. Anyway, we went there, and during lunch, I just, sitting there and like, oh, yeah, some sensations, some things are happening here. I think while we were at their house, I like pooed like 3 or 4 times. And I was like, yep, things are definitely happening.
That's
here.
Different.
Yeah, that's not my normal. There's some something's going on here. But it was really nice to see them again and be in that space. I didn't say anything to anyone. It was just, I think my husband knew that I was, but I just didn't say anything for it. We got home and we had to change the cars around out of the driveway because I'd said, I'm pretty sure the baby's coming tonight. And as I reversed out, like when we'd finished, my husband was like, have you ever driven a car before? And I was like, have you ever driven a car while having a contraction before?
Right.
Yeah. So it definitely things were happening. He went over to his sister's to pick up a camera. And because I was like, it would be nice maybe if you took a few photos this time. And then we just kind of like did the things. It was just really slow, and they were really all over the place, really sporadic. And so we had dinner pretty sure I ate. Like I still felt fine to eat. I put the older girls to bed. Like I just read them a story and they're like, why do you keep stopping? And I'm like, because the baby's coming. And I just breathe through it and they just sort of watch. And like my older two, so they were 8 and 6, 7 and 5. Yeah, and just read them a story and they went to sleep. And I said, the baby's coming. Do you want me to wake you up when it's time? Like, or daddy to come and wake you up when the baby's going to come? And they were like, yes, please do that. So they went to sleep. And then I came out and the youngest, our third daughter, was still awake. So I went and laid down with her and things were quite intense by now, but I maybe laid down with her and cuddled her for like half an hour or so. And it was getting quite uncomfortable to lie there. By the end, I started sort of like tapping my foot in the bed and tapping my thigh and being like, ooh, I need to start moving. So I got up and my husband gave me some, I'd really chipped him about that crappy massage he gave me for our third daughter. So he gave me a beautiful massage. And he didn't want to, I was like, please just lie down and have a rest. Please lie down and have a rest. This is not the same. This is going to take a little while. But he couldn't relax because he was like, no, I totally missed that last one. Like I bailed big time. I let you down. But I was like, please just rest. Don't watch me. So we filled up the birth pool. I bought a birth pool this time because my midwife had moved away, and this time she's not in the area anymore. And yeah, that just kind of was my thing. It just works for me, birthing in water. And so I filled that up and I hopped in before it was even nearly full because it just feels nice. And I just hung out in there for a bit. I'd been drinking, because it had been a long time of labour, I'd been drinking like some magnesium and calcium and water, I totally overdosed on that. So I think that's why I did those 4 poos earlier as well. It was not agreeing with my system very well. But I was just sort of sitting there in the water. I was roaring when I had to roar. And then at about 1 o'clock-ish, this is when everything was not agreeing with me, and I was like, I need to vomit or I need to poo. I'm not sure which one. And I think I ran to the toilet, and I kind of did both at the same time. And my eldest daughter woke up because she came out and
that's labor.
That's labor. Which is it? It's both.
Oh man.
Yeah. So she came out and she was just, you okay, Mom? Yeah, the baby's coming. So hopped back in the pool and was maybe there, like maybe 5-10 minutes later, my second eldest daughter came and joined us. We were right outside the bedroom of my third daughter, and she just slept through the whole thing, even though I was just roaring. So I felt like I was so loud. There was this one contraction that was so big, and I remember looking up thinking, am I scaring my babes at the moment? And I looked into the eyes of my eldest daughter, and she was just she was so calm and serene, and she was like, I love watching you do this, Mama. And yeah, exactly. It was like that. They just come and like stroke my hair on my back as I was like resting on the side of the pool. They were beautiful. I had to tell them to shush a couple of times, of course, because they're kids and they will giggle, and I think I pooped in the water or something, and like I picked it up thinking it was a blood clot. And I was like, that's poo. And they just thought this was so hilarious. They're like, remember when you grabbed your poo, Mom? Oh, that's so funny.
Oh, my God. That will go down in your family's history.
Totally. And yeah, so.
Oh, my God. I can't believe she said that to you.
Anyways.
So sweet.
So beautiful. So beautiful. And just, so amazing that we think kids will be like terrified by the birth sensations and whatever. And I don't think my daughters viewed it as pain at all. All they saw was power and strength and So one of the things my husband has said was just that he had no idea what was happening for our third daughter. And I kind of set that up. I kind of wanted it like that. So it was fine. But this time I was just quite vocal. And so, she started coming and I was like, oh, my water just broke. And I think they saw it. They could see that in the pool when my water broke. And then I'm like, okay, her head's out. Like I was just sort of, just these little commentaries, like 1 or 2 words. Yeah. And then I birthed her and the cord was around her neck like at least a couple of times as well. Like again, same as my third daughter. And I just unwrapped it. So not an issue. picked it, like, and so intuitive. Like I don't, you just don't even think about it. It's just this, it's like one motion that just happens.
It's like, what would anyone do if a baby had a rope around their neck? Like,
Not
what would
cut
anyone?
it.
They would unwrap it.
Yeah,
it's like it's not complicated.
No, but that's it. Like birth's just not complicated when you just let it happen, right? It just, picked her up. The girls were sort of like, my older two were like, pick it up, Mom, pick it up. I'm like, I'm picking it up. You're okay. So I pick her out of the water and hold her on my chest, and they're like, oh my God, can we hold her? I was like, no, you can't. Can I hold
her? It's been 12 seconds.
It was literally like that. No, you really can't. So just held her, picked her up, and she was just beautiful, so perfect. She didn't cry. She just looked at us and just was like, wow, this is my family. I helped out. This was probably like the longest birth of the placenta that I'd ever had, or the longest time between it. And I think it's just because my bladder was just so full. I'd just been drinking so much all day, and emptying my bladder was just so tough. And so I was lying there on the bed, and I kept sort of putting pads between my legs and just trying to pee into them, but I couldn't release. Like it just, So after maybe like an hour and a half, and I could feel it there, like it was there. I was trying to push it out, and it wasn't coming.
So uncomfortable.
So uncomfortable. So after maybe an hour and a half or so, I got up and I waddled. My girls think this is hilarious too, with like a bowl between my legs, like to our bathroom, and they're all following me like, oh, what you gonna do? And then I just squatted sort of on our bathroom floor and pushed it out. And there's such relief. It finally coming out feels so good. And then we just I think I had a shower just to just wash my bottom half, and jumped into bed and had cuddles, and just perfection. And so lovely. I just think having a baby and just being able to hop into your own bed is just divinity.
Yeah. So how would you say, it's a huge question, but how would you say that these births, and particularly your choice to do it your way, has shaped you as a woman and a mother?
It definitely, it's such a huge fuck you to the system, right? To live like this. And I guess it just, gives me so much confidence in ourselves and, in the way that we live. I guess this is always how I'd lived, but maybe not really, because I still, like I said, I had my first baby in a hospital, and I wouldn't have even considered doing it, even though home birth was on my radar. Wouldn't have considered doing it that way. But I think, just being so much trust and respect for ourselves and our bodies, and knowing that we can hold it all.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
I really appreciate it. Those are beautiful stories.
Thank you for listening.
And that's it for today, my sisters. Check out everything we do, including one-on-one and group coaching. Learn about our private membership, in-person retreats, and more on freebirthsociety.com. Our online courses are on freebirthsocietycourses.com, including our flagship course, The Complete Guide to Free Birth. Don't miss the Radical Birthkeeper School if you're ready to become the authentic midwife that women are searching for. Together we rise, and the revolution starts inside each of us. Our opening song is by Shyla Ray. And now I'll leave you with our Free Birth Society theme song, Wild Woman by Aruba Red.
I honor you for the wisdom you held, the ancient traditions of plant medicine and womb magic. I feel the spirit of the ancestors as I place my hands upon my belly. This sacred portal will be honored. Eons upon light beams of survival, withstanding the eradication of our power by design. I will not allow the separation of our young to be forced upon me. My sisters will no longer birth in captivity. The picket line redefined from burning our wild women to paralyzing us and drugging our babes. Strapped down in a clinical white bed, drying up the milk from our breasts. Keep your needles. My family will never again be doomed to chase those dragons or your poison. We reject your fear. We choose love. Everything with intention. Death, ascension. I will fly and bring her back from the stars. Conscious